people think that their gardens are there to provide them with a little bit of joy, a little bit of peace, a little bit of mindfulness. But today I'm here to show you that things aren't always what they seem. Today I have got together with some fellow YouTubers and they are going to share with you their garden nightmares. Now you'll know from my videos that I like to encourage as much wildlife in the garden as I can, but sometimes our furry friends don't have such good intentions.
This is Mala, and this is Henry. Mala loves Henry. Mala also loves gophers. She loves to dig for them and try to find them in their tunnels. I built this entire bed, this entire area of my garden to keep the gophers out. At the bottom of these beds, I put wire mesh to deter the gophers. In this section right here, I didn't have quite enough wire mesh to line the entire bottom. There was a gap about this big, and I thought, that's not that big of a problem. But the horror has shown itself. A gopher found that gap and has burrowed into my tomato bed. Mala doesn't dig in this bed. She doesn't hunt gophers here. She hunts gophers on the outside, but not on the inside. And horror of horrors, the gopher is feeding, and it's eating my tomato plants. I'm a live and let live kind of gardener. I love seeing wildlife in my garden, but this is scary. Happy Halloween, Jane.
So Jane has asked me to discuss my gardening horrors for 2023, and I have to admit I didn't have as many as I thought I'd have. Considering I've had a new plot, things went pretty much to plan, except for one. No, not poltergeist, but something even worse. Something that actually destroyed my garden time after time after time through spring and summer. It was moles. I had this idea of having a lovely kitchen slash country style allotment garden on this plot, and they came through and ripped it to pieces. I planted dahlias, I planted all my crops in, and they constantly kept pushing up the plants, ruining the soil structure, and they caused me an absolute nightmare. I tried everything you can imagine: cinnamon, pepper, chili, and even some sonic vibrating stakes in the ground, but nothing stopped them. It did for a while, but then they came back and they constantly kept pushing at plants and destroying things that were my main crop for this season, and it became a massive headache. So when I took on this plot, I wondered why all the soil was so fine and a nice tilth, and I thought, God, perfect for carrots, perfect for growing in. And the reason is, this plot was left for 2 years and the moles have dug it all over for me. So what am I going to do for next year? So next year I will try and deter them as much as I can. However, I have learned over this year that some horrors in your garden you just can't avoid.
And this year's nightmare for me here at the allotment is it's rather small, furry, looks rather cute. It's got big floppy ears and it hops about, and that is rabbits. I'm at the edge of the allotment site, and over here in this big bank over here is where the rabbits live. And when I say rabbits, I mean lots and lots and lots of rabbits. There's loads of them. And the rabbits decided they would come in. And what they have done, is they ate pretty much everything out of this bed. And you can see here they've been digging in the soil here as well. And over here, look, we've been digging in the soil here and here and all over here. And this is supposed to have radishes in this bed. These radishes have been eaten by the rabbits probably half a dozen times. Let's see what else they took a fancy to, because I was quite surprised at this myself. This was the flower bed. Now the peas had come out and we put some flowers in, and the rabbits have eaten all the flowers that were there. But that's not the best bit. The best bit is, I came up one day when I was doing a bodge job to fix this fence, and there was 2 rabbits in here, and I should have seen me, honestly, I chased them around the plot. One of them escaped, and I lost track of the other one, and I fixed the fence, and I think I have now trapped a rabbit inside the plot. So there's a rabbit living here with me, merrily eating all the things I'm growing. Luckily it's coming into winter, so that's the end of that. But I need to track the rabbit down, put it out, and get the fence fixed properly. Anyway, that is my garden nightmare for this year.
So, what do you think? Have you had any beastly encounters? Let me know in the comments below. Next, we're going to take a look at some monstrous weather. To say that it's been peculiar this year is somewhat of an understatement, but you might even go so far as this time it's been downright evil.
Most years I would say my garden horror is the number of spiders I encounter, but this year has been completely different. This year I've been horrified at the amount of rain we've had. It has flooded. It has washed out nutrients. And it has stopped play in the garden week after week after week. And the plants have really suffered. They haven't grown as tall. They've suffered with a lack of light because of so many rain clouds. And quite frankly, this year has been, well, it's been a washout.
My absolute horror story of this year has been the weather. During one of the huge storms we had at the beginning of the year, our polytunnel came all the way down. My sister and I got a phone call in the morning after the storm from one of the other allotment holders saying that our polytunnel completely was to the ground. So we came up here, we just weren't prepared for what it was going to be like. The poor polytunnel was just on its knees. The cover was completely off, the frame was bent. We got it all back on and we did manage to patch it up, but that was such a horror story.
So what do you think of that? How's your weather been this year? Tell me in the comments below. So just when you think that Mother Nature has done her worst, she still manages to produce a couple of extra surprises out of her magic hat.
So Jane has asked me, as it's the spooky season, Halloween, what are my garden horrors? What have been my garden horrors from this year? And without a doubt, I said to Jane, tomato blight. That is exactly my garden horror from this year. We can do all we can, can't we, to avoid tomato blight? But it's been a funny year, hasn't it? It has been a funny year. We can ventilate, we can make sure the lower leaves are taken off, we can do all of these things, but if the weather's not in our favour, we're going to get that blight. Unfortunately, I got it on my outdoor tomatoes and in the polytunnel. What can we do? All we can do is pray for next year. Happy Halloween, everyone.
One of the bigger horrors that I deal with in my garden year after year is weed pressure. We live and garden in southwestern Kentucky, so we have a really long growing season, which is a good thing, but it's a long time to deal with weeds. So there's a few different ways that I deal with weeds, but I also wanted you to know that it's very common and very okay for the weeds to eventually take over. One of the main ways that I combat weeds in my raised bed garden area is a nice deep layer of mulch. So obviously we still get a few weeds coming up through, but because of the mulch, they are very easy to pick out. They're not very deeply rooted. Another great way to combat weeds is to plant your plants as close together as you can. You obviously want to give your plants enough room to grow and thrive and reach their full potential, but if you plant them as close as possible, what they're going to do is actually shade out underneath of them, and that's really great because it doesn't allow the weeds underneath to get enough sunlight so they don't impact what you're actually trying to grow. Another effective way to combat weeds in the garden is a weed barrier. So the weed barrier that we use is a woven weed barrier. This is very important because the woven nature of the weed fabric allows air circulation and it allows the water to penetrate. Another fun way to combat weeds that I don't have an example of here is you can plant understory plantings of things that act like a living mulch. One really good example of this is called alyssum. Alyssum has roots that like to intertwine with the roots of your current plants in such a way where they don't rob your current plant of nutrition. So maybe I will plant some of that soon.
I hope you've enjoyed sharing some of our fellow YouTubers' nightmares. But what about you? What have your nightmares been this year? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, not everything in the garden is rosy.